An addiction is when the body has been conditioned to be the mind. Their brain creates the image of what they need to do to make that feeling go away. And the last time, or the last series of times, it was that exogenous substance or that activity that made it go away. Yeah. Now, here's the problem.
Hello, and welcome to the Pacific Channel. I'm your host, Steve Doherty. And today we're going to be listening to an audio clip of Dr. Joe Dispenza about addiction and how to get over it. What is addiction? Basically, addiction is doing something that you know is not good for you, but you can't stop yourself. It's also self-sabotage. A lot of us have underlying negative beliefs about ourselves, and we may not even realize that these thoughts or beliefs are there. So our subconscious mind, though, however, does believe that we don't belong or aren't worthy or aren't good enough, and so it will manifest things into our lives like addiction to keep that thought or that feeling going or that belief, right? So Dr. Joe said that addiction is an emotion that a person is doing their best to regulate. We typically do all we can to keep ourselves from feeling those negative feelings. And one example is somebody who's addicted to alcohol. Basically what they're doing is they're turning to drinking in order to subvert or submerge or do away with some kind of a negative feeling, either about themselves or about life or whatever it is. So the way that Dr. Joe talks about it, it's when the body is being the mind. It's the body taking over the mind. And I know that sounds kind of weird because he's not saying that the body has memory, but the body can store information just like how water can store information from our thoughts, as Dr. Emoto once proved in the movie What I Believe. Our bodies can also store information, and the cells of our bodies are kind of aware and conscious of vibration, right? So everything is vibration, everything is energy, everything is vibration. So Dr. Joe talks about how when a person is exposed to a trauma, their brain freezes the frame, takes a snapshot, and stores it as long-term memory. We remember a traumatic event because we remember the feeling associated with it. We produce the same chemistry in the brain and the body as if the event was occurring right now. The body doesn't know the difference, right? So what I found interesting is that Dr. Joe doesn't talk about beliefs here. A belief is just a thought that you keep on thinking. You create your beliefs about yourself through your experiences. So we are very much like a computer. For example, a folder is the same thing as a belief, right? So, or a label. So underneath the folder is an event, a proof. So if we have a folder or a belief that I'm not good enough, then underneath that folder, we will have all the different events and all of the different situations that happened to us in our past that help to support that belief. And the subconscious mind will store that information in our minds, in our brains, and pull them up for us to look at once in a while to prove why we have a certain belief if we try to counteract those negative thoughts and beliefs that we have about ourselves. One of the tools that I think is excellent to deal with addiction and self-sabotage is EFT. Because basically what you can do is you can tap for the negative event that you've experienced in your past, and you get to the point where you no longer have an emotional intensity behind the event that occurred. So if something happened in your past when you were 8 years old that still bothers you now on a scale from 0 to 8, you can get it down to a 0 and it will feel so much better. You will feel like it's not even your story any longer. That's just one of the ways that you can deal with addiction. But Dr. Joe has got another way that's also excellent. See if you can pick out his solution, and let's listen to him now.
And I think that we've been programmed, and it's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just how we've been programmed. So I think behind every substance addiction or some addiction on some gaming or media or whatever, there's an emotion that the person is doing their best to regulate. So let's just say a person has been exposed to a trauma, right? And when we have an event in our life that changes our emotional state, the stronger the emotion we feel from the shock, the betrayal, the trauma, the news, whatever it is, the more altered we are inside of us, the more the brain freezes a frame and takes a snapshot, and that's called the long-term memory. And long-term memories, we remember them because we can remember the feeling associated with them. So what most people don't know is that trauma or those series of events alters our internal state, and every time we think about or remember the trauma, we produce the same chemistry in the brain and body as if the event was occurring. Now, the body is so objective that it doesn't know the difference between the real-life experience that's creating that emotion or the emotion that person is fabricating by thought alone. And it only takes a thought and a feeling, an image and emotion, a stimulus and response, and you're actually conditioning the body subconsciously into that emotional state. And that sets the baseline of that person's emotional state. So then the person goes, God, I feel empty, I feel anxious, I feel unworthy, I feel resentment, I feel frustrated, and I don't know how to change it. So then they look for things in their outer world to make that feeling go away. So whether it's a drug, whether it's gaming, whether it's pornography, whether it's complaining, doesn't matter what it is. But let's just use a pill as an example, or a drug, a recreational drug. The person takes a recreational drug. The moment they take the recreational drug, they notice a change in their emotional state. And the moment they notice that change in their emotional state, they associate that change with what caused it, and they remember what caused it. So that starts to create a dependency. Now, I think there are degrees of addiction. Some are very physiological, receptors are modified. But when you get right down to it, an addiction is when the body has been conditioned to be the mind. So then the person, every time they start feeling the emptiness, they feel the unworthiness, they feel the frustration, they feel the anxiety, their brain creates the image of what they need to do to make that feeling go away. And the last time, or the last series of times, it was that exogenous substance or that activity that made it go away. Now, here's the problem. Let's use gaming as an example, okay? So when you blow someone up, or you break through a certain level, or you shoot someone, or you get points for whatever you're doing in a game, there's a release of dopamine in the brain, and dopamine is the reward chemical. It's the pleasure chemical. The problem is that the amount of dopamine that's released in a very short interval of time is outside of normal. So now, rush dopamine into the brain, and the receptor sites on the outside of the cells say, this is way too much dopamine than I'm used to processing. So the receptor sites actually close down. They shut down. So now, in order for the person to get that same feeling, they got to play more. They got to do more. The stimulus has got to be greater. So over time, we start recalibrating those pleasure centers, those receptors, to a higher level. Now, what's the significance of that? In the absence of that stimulation, our pleasure centers have been hijacked to such a high level that we can't find pleasure in anything. You can't find pleasure from a sunset. You can't find pleasure from sitting down at the table and having a meal with your family, playing with a dog, going to see your grandparents. Especially for a lot of children, you can look at them and you can see that something happened to them where they're just glazed over. That's because they're kidnapped by the technology. And so in order for them to get that same rush, they have to play more, they have to do more. Now, here's really the big problem. Learning should be a reward in and of itself, right? I mean, learning should be a reward. But now, for most people, they need a stimulus. They need something to drive their attention to whatever they're learning. And now attention is dependent on something outside of us. And when you capture people's attention, you capture their energy. And you can program them as a result of it. So the solution then is to teach people how to self-regulate. So we see people that come to our work that have had problems with addictions, all kinds of addictions. But really, it's some emotional addiction that really they're trying to change, right? And so they just been programmed to think that it has to happen outside of us. So what we discovered in our research is that you could actually turn that hypnosis, that conditioning around, and not wait for the experience to produce the emotion, but teach people how to self-regulate their emotional states and be able to trade resentment, frustration, anxiety for an elevated emotion. And if you keep practicing it, you get really good at what you practice.
Yeah.
So good at it that you actually become it. So then when people start to self-regulate, we actually measure what happens to their physiology when they do it properly. And it becomes a habit. And so then when the person notices then that their body's out of balance, they have one of two choices. They can rely on some exogenous substance or something outside of them, or they can take a moment and recalibrate their emotional state. And the only challenge, I think, with addictions is that the moment you say, I'm not going to drink coffee, I'm not going to smoke cigarettes, I'm not going to drink alcohol, I'm not going to have sugar. The moment you make that conscious declaration with your conscious mind, the body has been conditioned and dependent on that substance. So 2 hours goes by and the body has modified its receptor sites, and it starts talking to the brain. It starts saying, Rangan, why don't you start tomorrow? Tomorrow's a better day. Any other day but this day, this is not a good day for you. It's my parents' fault. It's my boss. It's the news. And that thought is being driven by the body-mind. Now, if we act on that thought, we make it the same choice, we do the same thing, we create the same experience, we feel the same emotion, and then all of a sudden that emptiness or that emotional state goes away, and the person returns back to the known. So there is a biological, there is a neurological, there's a chemical, there's a hormonal genetic death of the old self, because you're breaking that stimulus and response. That inhibition then causes the body to feel chaos. It's looking for the known, the familiar. So instead of white knuckling it to the other side, we teach people how to regulate their internal emotional states. And over time, you start seeing the moment you're feeling an elevated emotion like gratitude or appreciation or kindness or care or in love with life, you don't need anything outside of you to make you feel better. You're actually doing it by yourself. And people can sustain these states like any habit for an extended.
So were you able to figure out what Dr. Joe's solution is when it comes to getting over an addiction? Basically what he does is he teaches people how to self-regulate their emotional states and be able to trade negative emotions for positive ones, right? So that's the whole goal of meditation, is to raise your vibration. And the other goal is to take that vibration out into your world, out into your normal life. So the other point that he made that I thought was really good is that he said you don't need anything outside of yourself to make yourself feel better, right? So that will help you to avoid getting addicted to anything, because you're not looking for anything outside of yourself to feel better. You don't need any conditions. So you don't need the cigarette, you don't need the alcohol and that kind of thing. You want to get to a place where you're not living a conditional life anymore. In other words, you don't want any condition. You don't want to look to any condition to be able to make you feel better. You want to be able to generate that better feeling within yourself, right? When I talk about myself regarding this, when it comes to me, I used to have a bad computer addiction, and I have found that I can't touch computer games because I'll just get too into it and too addicted, right? And I know that a lot of young people struggle with that. They get addicted to games, addicted to Call of Duty or this or that. And these things are not good for us. If we look at like Facebook, it's highly addicting. You get a dopamine hit every time you get a like on anything. And so we can use things like EFT, emotional freedom techniques, in order to tap away the stress or the negative feelings that we have within ourselves. Or we can use the law of attraction, which is where we choose to think better feeling thoughts. So that's it for this video. Please leave a comment below about what you have found that works for you as far as being able to stop any kind of addiction. And then have a great day or night.